For everybody out there, we are with Gina Farese from Marcor Construction and Marcor Solar. She's obviously a friend of ours. She's a friend of mine. Um, she's an awesome person, great individual, and runs a dynamic company. There's a bunch of questions that a lot of our viewers have emailed in. So we're going to kind of go through them a little by little.
Sure.
I am here with my partner, Reenie Murino. I keep saying we've been together a couple of years. It's been
22 years.
22 years. Most marriages
I
don't
was
last.
just going to say, most people
No,
don't
don't
stay
Most
that long
marriages
married.
don't last 22 years.
You never had a
So,
fight?
Never.
Never.
No.
Better knock on wood real quick.
We've never had a fight. So, with that being said, Gina, if you can first, just give us a little synopsis about Marcor Construction, because people say Marcor Construction, Marcor Solar. So
And
just
why?
give it, and why? Like, give us a little
Why?
bit of insight on the company and you, please.
So basically, Marcor Construction is our exterior remodeling division. We do a lot of business to business work. We also do business to consumer. It's really roofing, siding, windows, exterior remodeling, as far as, gutters, metal roofing. Um, so we self-perform majority of our projects. So a lot of the insurances that we carry, all of our guys were paid on their books. The insurances we carry are protecting everybody out there with our, New York's labor law and the scaffold law, all of those important things that these builder developers need. But what a lot of homeowners don't realize that they also need. Um, so that's really the exterior side of things. Um, and then we've got our solar division. When you guys sold me my house, what, 8+ years ago, I had just recently had Gabriella as we moved into that house. And, I'm doing all this work. I'm running roof divisions for solar companies. Like, how do I not get solar? So I get solar. I'd never once been up on my roof. I hired a solar company. You guys know what you're doing. You do the engineering. Let me know when it's done and give me the bill. So sure enough, the shoemaker has no shoes. I have $30,000 of damage in my own house from the solar company. And I had to remove the system. I had to reinstall it. Then I had to remove it again, reinstall it. It did one problem after another. And when I went up on my roof, I realized, oh my God, the solar trade doesn't understand the roofing trade, but they're the ones putting holes in the roof. We got a big disconnect here. And I was already traveling to the national roofing conferences with Owens Corning, and I was sitting down with the CEO of Owens Corning Roofing, and he was kind of picking my brain at that same time, saying, like, why are the roofers not getting into this, and how do we support the roofing industry getting behind the solar? And that was when I realized that roofing was a trade. Solar is just a product that ties in, right? So there's various components to solar. You've got the panels that are penetrating the roof line, so you need roofing knowledge there. You've got electric. You're tying electric into the box, into your electrical unit. Well, you have a master electrician that does that part, or should at least be doing that part, right? And you have an engineer that's got a stamp that they're stamping the plans. So if you could check the box of the engineer, you could check the box of the master electrician, the only thing that the solar industry we found is missing is putting the holes in the roof, and who's doing it, and is it being done correctly? So there's also different insurances that are associated with that. So what I did is I split both companies and I opened up Marcor Solar. And Marcor Solar has different insurance, like obviously, height restrictions, things like that. But there's an electrical component that Marcor Solar has to have on the insurances. Now, what ended up happening as we were doing all of this, I went into the solar end of things expecting to really go after more service work, because roofs were being, solar was being put on roofs that were way too old to be able to, or they were against code. They were 3, 4, 5 layers. They didn't have a proper substrate because, again, roofing is a trade. And if you don't understand what you're looking at, it's very easy to miss how many layers a current roof is. Was the roof installed to spec? Was it installed to code? So there's a lot of, balls in the air that if you don't know what you're doing, you could potentially put a homeowner in harm's way without knowing it. And I want to just preface this whole conversation is solar is amazing.
Right.
When it's done correctly.
Right, you're correctly right.
So obviously you guys know that there's obstacles, but there's so many potential obstacles. But when it's done right,
the benefits are great.
You're adding equity to your property. You're saving. The savings they're astronomical in many cases. So again, it's just a matter: is it done right? I tell people all the time that nobody should have to help sell you solar. solar is math. It either makes sense or it doesn't. You use a certain amount of electric. Your roof allows us to offset a certain amount of the usage. And is this going to save you money or is it not? And is it sometimes it's only going to save you maybe 80% of your bill. It still may make sense in some cases. So it's really up to the homeowners themselves, who's got a tax appetite, who doesn't have one. So there's a lot of variables that go into it, but all in all, I guess if it's done right, it makes a lot of sense.
Do you have the ability to kind of look at a home and know is it worth it for the homeowner? Like, can you have a little bit of what I'm looking for?
What
Insight?
makes sense for
Like future knowledge to say,
yeah,
you know, this home is in this location and
faces this way.
and
Let's say faces
like
east.
the homeowner could realistically save 10% on their bill. Like, does that you get it
So
done?
it's pretty
How do you
quick
plan
for
it
us
out?
to get a design done. I can't tell people what kind of savings they're going to have or what kind of offsets they're going to have until I see their electric bill and see what their existing usage is.
Yep,
Because
makes sense.
you know your usage is going to be different than your usage. Your usage is going to be different than my
Because
usage.
it's personal.
You know, my kids leave the lights on. You know, growing up,
Right.
my father used to. I mean, my father was
Oh,
very bold with you. My father used to be like, "What do you think? I own the power company."
Yep.
So
I
now
think that was a line in everyone's house.
I think, right?
It's so true.
leaving the TV on,
Yeah,
leaving the light on.
everything.
Now the joke is with my kids. What do you think? Just because we have solar panels, they're free? Like we still could go over
Right.
the usage, and it's bad enough that Dad leaves the pool heater on for 3 weeks at a time in the summer, and I end up with an electric bill that I shouldn't have, right?
Right.
So, but again, it's up to the usage.
So good. So
You want to start with some of these questions that were sent in?
Yeah.
One number one.
Yeah.
Okay. So some people, Gina, are asking, what are some of the things that a homeowner should consider if they were thinking about getting solar panels and they may move in the future? Like,
What do you consider the future?
so I would say probably
Within 5 years?
5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, if somebody has a tax appetite and it's a good offset,
Yeah.
I tell people it doesn't matter when you go solar. You could go solar and a year later sell your property. If there's value in that solar
Okay.
and you own it, you're getting the tax benefits. You're transferring, you know, in whether you lease it or whether you own it and have a note on it,
Yeah.
or whether you are paying it outright, which you'll be surprised how many people do that. They'll take a home equity line of credit, or so they'll find alternative financing.
Yeah.
You're also seeing people just paying cash for systems right now because of the interest rates.
Side.
So at that point, you have added equity in your house. So when it comes to an appraisal
And value.
you're adding the value, right? So now you have a proven track record of, hey, well, I've got 12 months or I've got 24 months where I could show you, here's what my usage has been, here's what I've offset, and here's what I haven't had an electric bill. If you're going to sell house A or house B and one's got no electric bill and one does, house A with the no electric bill is going to be worth a lot more money, right? So you're adding equity in that case. As far as leasing goes, if you're going to be looking to sell, you know, I've never been a big supporter of leasing if it's not the right lease. There are good leases where you could buy out the lease at the end. There's a couple of companies we work hand in hand with that leasing is a necessity out here because, you know, maybe you're retired, maybe you don't have the same tax appetite, maybe you're just looking to save money and you don't really care about, you know, or you're staying in the house for a longer period of time. Or so again, there's certain situations that pertain to certain people. And so there's definitely products out there that fit everybody.
Like,
but most people will tell you that when it comes to solar, you want to own it.
you want to own it.
And at the end of the day, like I said, you could sell your house a year later as long as the appraiser understands either A, that the note's being transferred, but more important, I would prefer that at the end of this, at the closing table, the appraiser understands, and there's green appraisers out there that understand how to evaluate the difference of a lease system versus a power purchase agreement versus a purchase, right? Because all of them are going to hold different values when it comes to buying or selling that house.
Okay.
It's very hard though for an appraiser to know that when they're doing, you know, an analysis of the market and they're trying to run comps, they don't know if the 3 houses that they pulled out that are comparable have solar. Are they owned? Are they leased? Or is it a power purchase agreement? Because it's gonna it's going to change. So really the only way to, from the appraisers I've had conversations with, the only way to really put the value there is it owned? And then a lot of the times people say, all right, well, I'm going to get X amount more for my house and I owe Y.
Right.
Okay, let's just pay off the loan at the closing. And now the homeowner the buyer
Oh my God. It's a
now
home run.
owns it free and clear with no
Yeah.
note left, right? But sometimes you don't have to worry. And again, it's numbers. So any part of solar from the original sale to closing on a home with solar,
Yeah.
it really, we can get into the installation side eventually too, which is a big component. But as far as the numbers go, it's mathematical equations. Things either make sense or they don't.
Yep.
So
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads into the question you were kind of hemming to, is that people always ask us, is it better to buy?
What's
Or is it better to lease?
I know.
I guess it's like,
So it's individual.
So you've got three components actually. You're missing one other is the power purchase
Yeah.
agreement.
What is the power purchase?
So a power purchase agreement is when, those companies that knock on people's doors and they say, hey, listen, we're going to put solar on your house and it's not going to cost you anything and you're going to buy your electric from us at a discounted rate.
That's a very common story.
Very common. And we service for a lot of those companies because those are the companies that are putting it on roofs that are 3, 4, and 5 layers that are against code, old roofs. We're seeing insurance companies start to come in and want to drop policies.
Happened to me.
And now they have solar on it. Now they want to drop you because they want your roof replaced. But now the homeowner has to pay out of pocket for the removal and reinstallation. Is that company still in business? Was it a lease? Did they have a pre-negotiated number for the removal and reinstall, or do they have to come out of pocket for it?
This is an excellent point that you bring up.
There's a lot of different caveats with that. So, the old leases had a set number. It was like $500 to remove and reinstall the system. The problem is that you're waiting probably 10 to 12 months for a company to come in and hopefully remove and reinstall the system. And it's delaying and maybe your roof's leaking or you're going to lose your insurance. So now a homeowner has no choice now to pay out of pocket. So there's a lot of different things people are not realizing behind the scenes. Like I said, if it's done right, that's why, we have kind of our breaking point of 10 to 12-year-old roofs. Anything past that, I'm not putting solar on.
Really?
I want people to roll it in at the roof. Otherwise, we'll walk away from deals. I had one the other day that the guy he bought a flip house and he had a low pitched roof with shingles on it with the wrong underlayment underneath it. And I said, at minimum, I have to redo this. If you want solar on this, it's the wrong system on here. And he didn't want to pay for the roof. And I said, I fully understand that. Another company is willing to roll the dice, by all means. And, I walked away and under my breath I said, I'll fix it when you're ready because you're going to call me at some point because it's going to leak. There's, like I said, there's different roof standpoints that you have to understand before you just start slapping solar on panels on houses. So is it better to buy or lease? Again, depends on the tax appetite somebody has, but hands down, anybody you talk to, and I'd say from you guys from a real estate standpoint, you're going to say owning is.
I think there's been a bunch of transactions that we've probably done in the last, I would say 24 months that have had solar.
Yeah.
And they've been owned.
Yeah.
And they make it your life a lot easier. They make the buyer and seller.
Years ago, they were leased, if you remember.
Yes. You're still going to run into those leases.
Yeah.
But you're seeing
more owners.
You're seeing more people shift to the ownership, but now you're also seeing people shift back to leasing. And now right now, what's happening in the last 12 to 18 months from the interest rates is you're seeing more people switch to the leasing model.
Because of the rates.
Because they don't want to spend the money on the interest rates. Or, they don't want to take a HELOC because the rates are still up there for them.
Yep.
So, again, every customer stands on their own merit. But now you also have the flip side of buying and selling the house with solar. There's other things to take into consideration aside from the transactional standpoint. So, that's something that obviously we would want to get to discussing.
Right.
Which probably leads into people always ask us, can I transfer the ownership of my solar panels if I sell my home? And that's
so up for discussion.
Yeah.
Is that at the beginning? So when you're getting solar, if I'm a homeowner and I'm calling you in for solar, it's probably one of my first questions. No?
It should be, but it's not.
Oh, it's wow.
The problem ends up to be is that if you get just like any loan, that you take a HELOC, you take, you take a second mortgage of any sort, you have you with solar, they put a UCC filing. So they put a lien on the property for the value of the
We've actually
system.
had that happen
Yeah.
over the summer.
Yeah.
Yes.
So even like on refinances, you have to subordinate the lien and, do a temporary subordination.
Right.
And then after the closing, put it back. It's the same thing that works for buying and selling the property. It'll depend on the bank. Some of them will allow you to transfer the note if it's an
Right.
owned system. Some, like in my case, if I never paid back my tax credits, I have a 2.9% interest rate on my solar because I got it at perfect timing to do it. Now you're looking at much higher interest rates. So for me, why would I pay back my tax credits? It was cheap money.
Right.
So what did I do? I rolled it in and I improved my house even more.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if I were to sell my house right now, I have a proven track record that I have little to no electric bill.
Right.
My house will appraise for more.
And you have a big house.
It's not big.
Well, it's big, but
It's a big
big enough.
property, but it's not a big house.
It's not small, but okay.
it's not a little tiny ranch.
But the kids still leave the TV on.
Well, they
So
can.
once
You
in a
have
while,
solar.
yeah, right?
Just kidding.
So what I would personally do is I would say, you guys are selling my house. I would say I want to know what the added value is for the solar, but I want to pay off this note. So you want to hit that when the appraiser's going there, that this is going to be an owned outright system because we're going to pay off that note at the time of the closing. So at the closing, we can cut that check. And now you don't even have to worry about transferring ownership. You can transfer ownership that sometimes people just want to take over the note,
Right.
which is allowable. Or you can pay off the note at the closing.
Yes.
But again, there's variables.
And now we're
Also-
also UCC.
Well, you eliminate the issue with the UCC
Yeah.
if you're going, and obviously that's up to the title companies and all of that of how they're going to want to handle that. But then you have the leasing. Leasing is a little bit different. A power purchase agreement is a little bit different. When you're transferring that, again, now some of the newer leases do have a buyout option after a certain period of time. So then you have the option, do you want to do,
Right.
do something at the end at the closing? Or you also have the flip side of the power purchase agreement and sometimes the older leases where we've seen people do a seller's concession at the end where the seller is actually writing a check to the buyer for $20,000-$30,000 just to pay off that solar and just get rid of it because the purchaser maybe didn't want it. I mean, when my father sold his house, the first deal fell through because he had leased solar, but he had the old good lease. And the people got, a little nervous. It was
They need
new.
to try.
And they said, no, we don't want to move forward with it. So
Not funny.
we do see it making and breaking deals again, if it wasn't done right and the questions weren't asked. So, that's when you're buying, or selling a house with solar, there's again, more items to take into consideration aside from just the finance side.
Right.
So.
All right, Ken. Number 4.
Number 4, I think we didn't talk about that. If I were a homeowner,
Yep.
what are the things that I would consider before purchasing a home that already has solar panels?
All right.
What would I ask you?
Who installed the system? Where are the warranties? Now you have
Mhm.
multiple warranties on solar, okay? You have panel warranties.
Right.
You have penetration warranties. If there's a roof that was done with it, you have a roof warranty. God willing, the roofer and the solar company are one and the same. And a lot of, or you see that, sometimes they're on the same contract.
Yeah.
So you have a roof warranty with that. But now, so the roof, you have a material warranty that you hope that they registered. I always tell people when we register it to make sure that they print that email and stick it with the deed of their house because that's transferable as well. Then you have the labor for the roof.
Right.
Then you have the penetrations of the panels. You have the bracket warranty. You have the panel warranty. You have an inverter warranty. You may have a critter guard. If they put the pest traps around it, you may have a different labor warranty on that. You want to make sure that, again, who installed them? Is the company still in business? So we actually are launching a program that we're doing internally. The program through Marcor Solar is called Solar Roof Check. And what we do is when people want to buy or sell a house, it's actually, we're seeing more buyers want to do it because they want us to get all of that information from them so that they can sell the house and say, hey, no, this is worth something.
Right.
I have this much left on my, my panel
Right.
warranty. This is what's left on the inverter. Here's who to call. Here's where the warranties are. Here's how to transfer the warranties. Here's the original contract. What happens? So we see you back to one of your first
Right.
questions. You said, what happens if somebody buys and then they decide to sell the house within a year?
Yeah.
Let's say somebody goes solar and the husband and wife decide they don't like each other. And then the husband took the tax credit and didn't tell the wife. So now, or didn't pay back the tax credit.
Right.
Now what happens? That monthly payment goes up. So if you don't pay that tax credit, right now your bill goes up, let's call it somewhere between $8 and $11 per thousand that you don't pay back. So now somebody takes the $10,000 tax credit, your monthly payment, now the buyer just realized, oh wait, my payment's going to go up $80 to $110 a month. That's not what I'm signing up for.
Right.
You told me this is what my payment was. So there's a lot of things to make sure where the tax credit's paid back. If not, what is the new monthly payment? Important to know lease, power purchase agreement, or finance.
Right.
And so with our solar roof check inspection, we do a 20-point roof inspection. We make sure that, everything that we can see was done to code, what kind of shingles are on the roof, where the proper systems used on, let's say, lower pitched roofs versus steeper roofs, where there are credit cards installed, just educating.
Yeah.
So there's a full report on what are you facing? And we found it to be a cost benefit both on the purchaser and the seller side, because you want to know, it's not so much, again, the numbers, it's the minutia of how it was done. You want to know where those companies, and are they still in business? What happens if the roof, like in my case, the solar company, and I didn't know stuff about solar back when I did my roof. When I did my solar, I know roofing, but I never went up on my roof. I didn't know what type of underlayments they used. I didn't know the pitch of that back roof. And that's because they used the wrong brackets on the wrong pitch. And it just allowed water to just completely pour in. They had misses, meaning they missed the rafters, and they never flashed those areas. That's why I have roofing guys alongside my solar guys on every single install. If something were to happen and they miss a rafter, God forbid, we're right there. We can fix it right then and there.
Right.
When I went up on my roof, it looked like Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
So we can only see what we can see without actually pulling panels and stuff like that. But with that roof check, we want to be able to make sure that you guys have every bit of information
it's an awesome idea. It's an
the
awesome
mortgage companies need the information.
The inspectors say, home inspectors don't. They'll have a clause in their contract.
Yeah,
exactly.
That they're not checking the roofing and they're not checking the solar.
Right.
So we're
Not
adding that little cherry on top to
I
make
think it's
sure that
great.
those things are being addressed for the homeowner.
What is the how many years are on the warranty? What is the warranty?
So they vary.
I figure.
The panels themselves are typically 25 years.
Okay.
Again, they can vary manufacturer to manufacturer. The brackets that we use carry a 25-year bracketing manufacturer's warranty as well. The critter guards, another interesting thing is that you see a lot of companies that screw the pest trap, the critter guards, like that's a non-negotiable on my installs, because I know all the service work. We're doing 30 to 40 services weekly where we're pulling systems, we're replacing roofs because, critters got underneath the system. They ate the wires, they ate through the roof. I mean, I've had claims that are $150,000 because raccoons got in the attic, got underneath the system, and the whole ceiling collapsed, and they had babies in the attic.
Oh.
So, like, to me, they're a pest deterrent.
Yeah.
To me, again, it's non-negotiable on my installs, just because I know the service work
Yeah.
that comes along with it if you don't have it.
Is it like an extra? Is that?
Yes, it's actually something that a lot of companies will cut that cost because it's labor and it's materials to do this, right? So at that point, what we're doing is making sure that, these people are getting the right system. But now there's a catch to this, ready?
Right.
You can't screw them through the panels. Otherwise, you void the warranty. Well, guess what? What do you think most companies are doing?
They screw them.
Yeah. And they say, oh, we got approval from the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I want a copy of that paperwork with my installation, because there's actual clips that it costs money to buy the clips. So for us, I don't spare an expense. I'd rather make less money.
Yeah, it's the right job.
And I'd rather do the right job and know that people aren't going to be calling me back. I use the best brackets. I use the best pest traps that we can find. We use the quality panels. We have licensed electricians actually working in the box. Like we check every box just like I do with the roofing, just like I do with the siding. So, it's important for people to understand because solar gets a bad rap. And again, it was done right. They don't have these issues.
Right.
And it's a huge cost savings and it's a huge benefit for the environment. So it's just that you got some bad players, just like in every industry, that just want to get the jobs up there, and they'll go and they'll broker it out to 5 different companies that'll do the install. They'll just be a sales company and they'll broker it out to people, and they'll broker it to whoever's not going to kick back that roof or whoever's going to do it for the cheapest number where they can make the most profit on it.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
It's unfortunate, and it's really, it's hurting the industry. I mean, it's a business that I shouldn't have had to go into, but it's a business that's...
I know. It actually, not that it worked out, but it did work out, kind of.
I mean, and
in a
then,
roundabout way.
the inspection side of it is huge too, because even the, it's from the lenders to the
Appraisers.
the appraisers, the closing attorney wants to know, like, what are the legalities here? Some of these contracts could be 30, 40 pages. How do you know what you're signing? A lot of the time, do you know how many times we do work for, I build roof divisions for solar companies also. So I know the inner workings of a lot of these companies. And it was funny because when I opened up my solar division, I actually had a company sue me for opening up a solar division. And it's because I stopped doing roofing for them. And I said, well, they're like, well, we're suing you because you took our roofer. And I was like, no, I was the roofer. I'm a free enterprise.
You are the roofer.
And they lost. I mean, it was what it was. They wanted to try and throw me off my game. Congratulations to them. They set me back about 6 months, and now I just...
You better.
Yeah, you know what? It gave me
more insight.
So much more of what is so shady about this industry that I can fix, right? Because you guys know me for a long time. I'm a rule follower. And I know it gets on people's nerves, but
you want it done the right way.
I do. And I want the
You'll
solar
get so much
companies...
more out of it if it's done the right way.
People are starting to realize that.
Yeah.
And when you're going about doing it the right way and you're going about offering the right warranty, it's something that...
It's a win-win. It makes sense.
It goes a long way. You need to do it the right way. But so...
I'm not a corner cutter. I like it to be done the right way. I don't want to have extra parts.
We did. And now, now you've got other companies trying to go after the service work and opening up roof divisions and this and that. And like, it's just like
different.
Roofing's a trade. I grew up in this industry. I had to roof myself. I had to haul shingles up. I mean, up the roof, and I had to clean garbage, and I've done it all. But to me, it's important that you have that ability to be able to troubleshoot those things right then and there and be able to educate the homeowners the proper way.
Yeah.
So
I think it's super important. Hey, Gina, it brings me to my next question. Is my roof suitable for solar? Like, how do you know?
So, loaded question. Lots of variables. What type of shingles were installed? How long ago were they installed? 10 years ago, they were still making 30-year shingles. So 10 years into it, you're talking, a 10-year-old roof, 12-year-old roof on a 30-year shingle. Given that it's going to last the full life of its expectancy, now you're putting 25-year system on top of it. 10 to 12 years is usually my breaking point. Now it's getting to a point where in the last 5 to 6 years, the warranties that have extended out to typically 50 years. You also have installs that, people were installing 3-tap shingles that have 25-year warranties. And so those are typically older shingles. They're really not commonly used shingles. They're barely manufactured anymore. They also had ones that were only 20-year shingles.
Yes.
So max you're really going to find is like a 50-year shingle on the market right now, and it's most common these days. But there's a lot of variables. Again, we've got no code enforcement here, which, again, as a rule follower, grinds my gears so bad because nobody's checking. Is there ice and water shield on the roof? Is there drip edge on the roof? Is it properly ventilated? Where the fasteners that are needed on the underlayments used?
So when a roof is redone, there's really no
checks and balances of it.
Check and balance of it.
No. It's something we're working very diligently on, and people will hate me because roof permitting is required everywhere else. Why it's not? I mean, some incorporated villages will require a permit, but in my eyes, that's a money grab because they're not enforcing.
Right.
Are the codes being met? Are the manufacturer specifications?
Right.
who did it. You know, they need to have a little bit more on record. Starting to see some townships realize that because there's not a whole lot of recourse if a homeowner hires somebody for a couple $1,000s cheaper and doesn't know any better. I mean, people truly don't know.
No, they don't know.
People in the industry don't know what the codes are.
Yeah. You're relying on the
On
salesperson or whoever that
Yep.
is talking to.
So there's also different things where, you know, the pitch of the roof, you know, how steep the roof is.
Yeah.
You know, the shallower the pitch, certain things have to be a lot of the time installed underneath the shingles in order to maintain the manufacturer's warranty. It's expensive
knew?
to do it that way.
Yeah.
People don't want to do it that way. Or sometimes where you can't use shingles and you have to use a low slope application. Sometimes we go on roofs and there's a torch applied roof. Torch applied roofs you can't use a torch on a residential house.
Right.
So you got people welding seams on a wood framed building that don't have the insurance if they torch that house, and no pun intended.
Wow.
They torch it and
Yeah.
it goes up in flames. It's wood framed.
Wow.
It is against the law, and most roofing contractors will actually, I would say, unless you're a commercial contractor on a residential basis, you're going to have an exclusion in your policy for torch applied roofing because you can't do it. Go on the East End, they're still torching a lot of these
Wow.
houses, and they're wood framed. So, you know, the pitches matter. The type of roofing system obviously matters. Ventilation matters. So how do you know? I mean, the biggest issue that we're seeing is a lot of the houses on Long Island still have, you know, the older houses, the old wood shake underneath them.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the home inspectors are missing that because they also don't always know what they're looking for, or sometimes they can't see it. It's, you know, it's capped on, you know, from the eaves and up on the rakes. They cap the fascias, or they put a drip edge over it so you can't see it without disassembling it. And then the cathedral, the ceilings, and it's all drywalled and, you know, insulated so you can't see anything. Right. So as a roofer, a lot of the times there's indicators for us to see that. But again, solar companies are not roofing companies, so how do they know the difference, right? So the cedar poses an issue because it's not a nailable substrate. So you really can't even roof over that. You need to strip all of that, need plywood, all of that. So then you've got, like I said, the pitches. Then you've got how many layers of the roofs. 2 here is our local code is 2 max. But what a lot of people don't.
So 2 with the dirt on top, or
No, 2 max. 1 with another. But except what people don't realize is that 1 architectural shingle, you can't put an architectural shingle on top of that. It has to be. No,
ripped.
You have to, if it's an architectural, you have to rip it.
Okay.
You can go 2 layers because the manufacturer specifications, the code might allow it, but now the manufacturer specification, it won't. You can't roof over an architectural roof.
Wow.
There's a lot of variables here that people aren't paying attention to. And man, unfortunately, people see an opportunity to just sell, and that's what they're doing. And
the permitting process would help a little bit.
It really would.
It would.
Because somebody would be looking at it. Right now, no one's looking
You're talking about the most important part of your home.
Yeah.
And nobody's looking at it. Like, there's...
changes everything if your roof is leaking. I mean, it really does inside your house.
It's a domino effect. And, you know, and people can't leave these ongoing leaks for a long period of time. And then, you know, mold starts happening.
Exactly.
Like
that was my next thing. You'll be dying with the mold. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
I would ask, so our last question is...
The misconceptions?
Right. So what's the misconceptions of solar panel?
That are commonly.
That solar's going to leak. It doesn't leak if it's installed right. Like,
it's installed.
If it's installed with the right brackets and the right labor
Yeah.
and educated people, you're not going to have, you know, have an issue. Listen, there is predatory lending. There is predatory sales tactics with solar. There, you have to do your homework and not get swayed. Like I tell people, you do not have to sell solar. So if somebody's trying to convince you to go solar, that's where you should start putting up a red flag.
Okay.
It's a mathematical equation. Right. It will make sense or it won't make sense, and the numbers will spit it out. So if somebody's sitting there pushing you and saying, no, but this is good, nobody should push you. This is not a pressure sale. So a lot of people, just like in most industries, they want that one sit close. They want the deal. They're salespeople. This is not a sales transaction in my eyes. This is you're putting on average a $50,000 system. You're putting a machine on your house.
Yeah.
You think you need to know what's going on with that? Yeah. I've had sales organizations argue with me because I had posted to somebody on Facebook, a customer inquiring
Yeah.
about solar on Facebook, and I said, I had said, you really want to make sure that there's some roofing knowledge there. You can be putting a couple hundred holes in your roof.
Right.
And the other solar company came back and went, oh, well, clearly she doesn't know what she's talking about because you're putting one lag bolt through each bracket. No, you're not. Depends on the bracket. There could be lag bolt. There could be one that you put 2 in. There could be one that you could put 5 in.
Which
There could be
depends
one
on
that
the
you could put
roof.
3 in. Depends on the
Smart.
bracket you're using.
Right.
Depends on the system you're using.
And probably
So
roof.
And the
let's
roof.
call it 4. Let's call it on average 4. If for easy math, you got
Yeah.
4 brackets per panel.
How
And
many
yeah,
panels?
some of them are gonna, share
Okay.
a joint bracket,
Right.
or they're gonna be on a rail. We don't do rails because we're used to be on the roof. We use a railless system, so it's lower profile. But you still have anywhere from 2 to 5 if you catch a rafter versus not catch a rafter. There's now products out there where
Wow.
you don't have to catch the rafter like what we use. So now let's do the math. Let's say it's even 3 per penetration and on average 4 per panel. Right, so it's 12 per panel times a 30 panel system. Last time I checked, that number comes to a couple hundred. A
Right.
couple hundred is anything more than 100, right?
Right.
So the math, but the difference, sales organization, they don't know the
Yeah.
install. They're not doing the install.
No.
They know how to sell the system, but they don't know they're not seeing the problems after the fact. They're not liable for the problems after the fact. They're not warranting the system.
Responsible.
They're outsourcing the install and
Yeah.
passing off that liability to a company that just wants to put glass on a roof.
Right.
And you have to understand, what are you getting? Because I lived it. There's a lot. I lost a bathroom. It was right in my daughter's bedroom. I ended up at that point, I was like, the amount of money I'm going to have to spend, I might as well just, reconfigure the upstairs. Cause when I bought the house, that was my mission anyway.
Right.
But it happened way sooner than I was ready for it,
Yeah.
because at that point I had to redesign the system and say, this doesn't, I'm going to
Wow.
redo these bathrooms and redo this, and then I'm going to redo it in 5 years from now again.
Yeah.
I guess I'm doing it sooner than I thought.
Yeah.
And thank God, because you're in the business, but for a normal homeowner who's caught in a position like that,
Oh, it's a
that
nightmare.
can, come in, who has an extra $20,000 laying around.
Not a whole lot of people.
Not-
And
it could really hurt
Yeah.
the lay person.
yeah,
Especially when they're putting it in as a savings. It's
Right.
going to add
And-
value and save them money later.
yeah.
And
And
now-
that's the thing, when you have to pay for the cost of the removal and reinstall, now you just lost a ton of your savings.
Yeah.
So just do it right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Great point.
And unfortunately there is business out there that there's thousands and thousands of systems out on Long Island that were installed that are going to have to be serviced. And things can go wrong with systems. You
course.
can have commissioning systems, you can have inverters that go down. Those are covered under your warranties.
Yeah.
So, anything, you watch your app, you make sure what's going
To
on.
me, they're right over these
It's unbelievable.
See it right there. I mean, I could, or all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I got an electric bill. Let me look into this one. And sure enough, you might have an optimizer out, or you might have something down on the system.
Wow.
So the evolution of solar has been interesting to watch. And again, I've
I'm
enjoyed
sure
getting
it's changed.
Right.
I've enjoyed getting more involved in it, but it's definitely like I said, I'm that rule follower, so there's definitely some challenges I face of
Thank God.
frustrations because certain things are just overlooked.
You've done what most people, we all should. I mean, you found a gap, you found an issue,
Yep.
and you're figuring out a way to fix it within an industry. And you should be proud of yourself. Your dad should be proud
Thank
of
you.
you too, because it's most people run away from things like this.
Yes.
And you said just the contrary of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and fix the problem,
Yeah.
and you've led the industry to do so. So it's really been
It's been funny too, because like I said, I got that lawsuit from the one company. A lot of solar companies got mad at me when I opened up the solar division, because they thought like, oh my God, the roofer's getting involved in this.
Right.
She's coming
Like
in our
you're
territory.
competing.
And I was roofing for a lot of them, and they were pulling the roofing. They found other roofers, and I was like,
That's okay. You'll be fixing it later.
and now a lot of them actually call me for their troubleshooting.
Yeah.
They call me for system removal and reinstalls. They call me for servicing. They don't.
because you truly understand the systems. You truly understand
The whole,
the
every part.
application.
Yeah.
It's not
And-
just slapping metal on a roof.
No.
It's understanding
Yeah.
why.
Yeah, I mean, you got guys that'll pull a system, and or they'll have a miss, and they'll put like a flashing card in there, and it's the flashing card's just like a piece of tin. Basically, it's not even that. It's like a sticker, like that's got this like reflective stuff, and it goes in between the shingles. I'm like, Just change the shingle.
Wow.
Why would you not want to address and fix the problem that you just created?
Right.
Because if you
You know, like
see,
gangs should be a problem with.
Gross.
it's not going to last you, especially on a 50-year roof. That flashing
Wow.
guard's not lasting you 50 years. The silicone you're sticking in there is not lasting you 50
Yeah,
years.
no.
So
It's wild.
it's, like I said, it is not something that I want people to feel like that there's going to be an issue. It's the same thing people say, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to put skylights in my house.
Right.
Skylights don't leak, the installation leaks.
Great point.
That's right.
Yeah,
Right.
the unit comes with a warranty. And
Yes.
have we had defective products? Absolutely. In any industry, at some point, this table could be defective.
Right,
Oh, yeah, well,
exactly.
things happen.
Yep.
But solar doesn't leak. The installation leaks. Solar, you don't have to pay for a removal and reinstallation to replace your roof because your insurance company's dropping you. You roll it into the financing in the front end.
Right.
If and again, everybody stands on their own merit. You could have a 5-year-old roof, and you know what? At the end of the day, you're clear to go, and everything was done how it needs to be. I mean, would I like to get a little more nitpicky on our site evaluations of like, hey, this was not to code. This didn't have drip edges.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I'd never have a customer because majority of the roofing contractors out there are not doing things to code, and they're not doing things to spec, and you don't have, a backup of, we photograph our systems, our roofs from start to finish. So
Yeah.
I can see things right now. I can pull my phone up and see in real time any roof that I have going anywhere.
Right.
I could see the fasteners they're using. I can see the nailing patterns. My project foundation, I have access to it all.
Wow.
But I do that because I know if I have to go back and reference, did I use this or did I not? I don't have to rip open the roof to do it.
Right.
And your manufacturing guy will probably love you for that.
But
You're taking it.
you're protecting them.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're also, when you register the warranty, and it's important for, for your homeowners to also know that, when you buy a house that has a 50-year warranty, you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's or go to a building supply and buy your own shingles. You're going to have the same warranty, except you're not going to have it if you don't register it. You go to PC Richard and buy a TV or an oven.
No one
You don't register that
registers.
warranty
That's a great point.
You know what happens to that warranty?
Goes right in the garbage.
in most cases, but right now you only have shingles on a roof. So
Right.
we implemented where every warranty gets registered upon payment, upon us closing out the job, closing out payments, all of that. We register those warranties and we actually send them to the homeowner.
That is awesome.
Reason we do that though is because there's a lot of things, and I only picked up on it because with registering the roof warranty, homeowners don't realize how many squares the roof is. How did we ventilate it? Where did we buy the materials? Those are all questions that are on a warranty to register it. And I'm not talking extended warranties. I'm talking a basic warranty. You have to register it.
I'd say there's probably, I don't know of any other roofing company that takes that step.
There's companies that do it if it's an extended warranty because you have to pay for that warranty and you're selling a warranty to a homeowner. So it's like, you buy a Viking stove and you buy the 5-year extended warranty, they have to register it. But the standard warranty, you're going to get that and you don't even know it's with your receipt. And nobody's actually registering the basic stuff.
Strange stuff.
So, it's just, I tell people all the time, we have shoes, we put them on our feet. We have jackets, we put them on our back. Like there is something for everything. Just, I'm not hanging my shoes on my ears. Like, there's just no reason why things just can't be done the right way.
Right.
But we're in a market where, people just want to grab a buck instead of just doing it the right way. And that's where
you're different.
That's where we've run. My father and I, our goal was always, it's not about what we make at the end of the day. It's about making sure it was done right.
Right.
And that it's not so much about what you make, it's what you keep. Right.
And your name is on it.
And you want to keep your name on it.
Yeah, your name is on it.
Correct.
Important.
And people
You got a good name.
It is the most important.
Yeah.
That's, you can't blemish that, and you want to make sure that you got enough people behind you supporting you and knowing that you do the right thing. Just a few guys.
Great story.
Yep.
Really, really.
Such good information, Gina. Who knew?
Information.
I had no idea that solar was that. I mean, I know it's involved just from selling homes, but I didn't know the depth.
Very intense.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a lot of cool things coming out down the pipeline, but
You mean for green, like as far as oh really?
Mortgages that you can roll
Really?
solar into for first time home. If you're buying a house and you want to do solar at that time, there's ways to build the solar into that.
That's actually
That's a great idea.
that's a great idea.
Especially first
Now
home.
Especially if,
buying it.
and especially if what if you have to change out the roof?
Well, so now
That could be rolled in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
If
because
I cut trees down, if I have to do electrical upgrades, anything like that. So now here's the cool thing. Now you get, what's your average interest rate right now?
6.25.
Okay. So right now, if you were to go get a solar loan, you could potentially get locked into, you know, a 7.9 or percentage rate, let's say,
Okay.
over, you know, let's call it 15 years.
Right.
Whereas now it's
goes
just part of your monthly payment. You're not feeling that. You're
Right.
bumping it.
No. I
And
think
now you're
that's awesome.
taking, let's say that, let's call it $50,000. You're adding that to the cost of your property over a 30-year mortgage
Right.
or over a 15-year mortgage.
Yes.
You're dealing
Changes your
less,
payment.
and then you're
Yeah.
getting the tax credit. You don't have to pay back that tax
Right,
credit.
a lot less.
I think that's awesome. And it enables the person to make the right decision, I think. So if your roof was you're buying a home, the roof is 10 to 12 years old,
Yeah.
me personally, I would want that switched out to a 50-year roof with the panels,
Yeah.
and go that way.
Right.
And I think that people will have the opportunity then to do it the right way.
And you're protecting it. And at the end of the day, you most importantly, you're protecting the consumer.
Yeah. I like you know me since I'm a kid. I like to find
like it.
issues and
She is.
I
She looks
appreciate
like a
it.
kid. I say that. She doesn't age at all.
But what? Thank you.
The kid has kids. I don't know how.
But when you're dealing with, you know, any part of a system, and you're talking about, like I said, solar, and you know,
Yeah.
you're buying the house, selling the house, you want to loop it into a mortgage because you want to get the solar, or you know, like I said, there's been these problems we found, and I build the business around solutions. So like the inspection is huge. The inspection for your customers to have that, it's not an expensive report.
It's worth it.
Yet you're going to get your money back. You're going to get your money's worth for it. And it's just giving you information, even if it doesn't get you more. It's giving access to information where people are not scared now to buy that house because it has solar. You're providing them there's full transparency there, and they know what you're getting.
Benefit. It really is.
That's the goal.
Well,
So.
thanks for the great, great conversation.
It's great sitting
Today with you, Gina.
Thank you for having me.
Good information, right? So, if we can, Gina, best number, email address to reach you, if you can.
Sure. So I can be reached at Gina@marcorinstalls.com, MARCOR installs.com, and that's installs with an S. Our office is 631-321-0593. You can catch us there for both the exterior remodeling side of things as well as the solar side.
And on behalf of Reenie and I and Team Musso, we appreciate everybody that viewed this. We had a tremendous lot of fun, and I think we can, maybe in the upcoming weeks or months, it'd be really cool actually maybe to get on a roof with you.
I love it. Totally.
That would be great.
You know what would be really cool for you guys to see is actually getting you on a roof that has problems.
Yeah.
For you guys to see
Gina,
why we're following a system.
Yeah.
What are the issues that we're seeing?
Yes.
Awesome.
Consider it done.
So
That would be great.
So keep us in the loop. Again, please follow, like, subscribe, comment. We'll hope to see you guys soon. Thank you and God bless.